Good day, everyone. We see people are still entering the meeting room bit by bit. Pleasure to see you. Hi. Nice to see some familiar faces from our NEOs and our here teams. Welcome, welcome. So just as an introduction, and then we'll get started with the program content, which is very rich today. This is the first Sphere Collective Technical Assistance Mission. That's the origin of this event today. We decided to offer a virtual technical assistance mission for all of the HEREs, for the entire HERE community, and to do it on a topic that is emerging in importance, both within Europe and globally. And we also decided to link this particular event to the final conference, which is forthcoming in November. So today you'll have an opportunity to explore more in depth the topic of greening in higher education, to learn about the results of an important study that the EUA has conducted across its membership, but also in some of the HERE partner countries. And you will be able to listen to some case studies and eventually discuss in the breakout groups we have planned for you later this morning. This is, for many of you, perhaps a first contact with this topic. For others, you're much more versed and you have institutional experiences. We are very much interested in hearing from you, which is why we have chosen this format for the event. Though during the presentations, please do keep your microphones on mute. A couple logistical issues from my side. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Elizabeth Colucci, and I am part of the Sphere team, which is composed of the University of Barcelona and the European University Association. And I'm joined today with several colleagues from the Sphere team who you probably know already. And if you don't, you will get to know them. We are delighted to be offering you this webinar today. Also, we offer thanks to our colleagues in the European Commission. Some of them are joining us today, who you will hear from, and also to our colleagues in the executive agency who oversee this initiative. Logistical announcements. Please do keep your microphones muted when you're not speaking, as we said. When we get to the point of interaction, and we've left space for interaction and for question and answer in most of the sessions, if you could post your questions in the chat, and we will, in some cases, potentially read that question out, and in other cases, we might call upon you if you're comfortable with speaking, and also depending on the time that we have. If you have any technical issues, you can write me directly in the chat, or my colleague, Nicole, who many of you know, who manages all of our technical assistance missions from the University of Barcelona. If you have written your name, excellent. And if you could possibly ensure that your name is written with Latin characters, that would help us, for those of us who don't read Cyrillic alphabet, to be able to identify you in the case that you're sharing a comment or you're participating. I should also note that this meeting is being recorded, and our idea is to make it available on the Sphere website prior to the conference as a resource for other colleagues who are not able to join today. If you have any objections to this being recorded, please do let us know in the chat, to myself personally or to Nicole, and we can make the appropriate edits afterwards. Without further ado, I would like to jump into the program, because like I said, we have a rich program today. I would like to first go to our introductory session, which is a sort of framing session for the event on the policy context for greening in higher education, particularly in the EU, but also further afield. We're very pleased to have Lucy Trojanova with us here today from the European Commission, DG EAC. She's a policy officer in the higher education unit, and she's going to give us an introduction. As I mentioned, please do share your questions in the chat as they emerge. Our colleague Henrietta from EUA will be we'll be checking that and summarizing them after the presentation. So Lucy, the floor is yours, and if you agree, I'll share your presentation now.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and thank you to giving me this opportunity to talk about this such an important subject. And indeed, it's one of the priority of the EU. And within this presentation, I would like to give you a short, let's say, an overview on what has happened until now in regards of the education for environmental sustainability, what we are working on right now, and what we are aiming for in the short future. So if we can pass on to the second slide. Super, thank you so much. So this is sort of the overview of the presentation. So I will give you the update on the Council recommendation, mainly the timeline. I will also give you the update about the stakeholders consultation, which have taken place. But also public consultations taken place. So I'll also tell you a bit about that. And then I'll tell you what is the conclusions, or what conclusions have we gathered up till now, and what will be the next steps. We can pass on to the third slide. Thanks. So what is this initiative all about? So the Council recommendation on education for environmental sustainability is part of the EU biodiversity strategy and the communication on the education, on the European education area. It's the main purpose of it, it's to develop stronger policies to support the member states to have the education for environmental sustainability within their national policies, to strengthen our cooperation on the climate education and biodiversity. The Council recommendation should cover all types of education. So it's not only focused on higher education or secondary education. It should be on all levels and for all learners. And it will also touch the adult learning, so also the lifelong learning. We can pass if it's okay with you. Perfect. Thank you very much. So again, we are looking on how to encourage the states, the member states, to cooperate further. We try to encourage peer exchange on environmental sustainability on education. We are also trying to increase awareness and understanding of the actions on environmental sustainability, on the education for environmental sustainability. And we are trying to support the member state to integrate this subject within their national policies. But of course, this approach should be cross-sector approach. So we are looking for holistic approaches. And we are also looking for something which is, I think, personally very important. It's to empower the learner to act on a personal, but also on a community level. I found it very, very important. But also we are looking through this, we are also trying to encourage the sustainable development goals, especially the one which is on education, which is the number 4, I believe, which says that by 2030, all learners should acquire a knowledge and skills that are needed to promote sustainable development. So this is what I've just said. It's the main idea behind the Council recommendation. And I believe we can pass on the other slide, if okay. Thank you so much. So this is the timeline. As you may see, we are currently now finalizing the text. and we are expecting the text of the council recommendation to be adopted by the end of this year. So the adoption should take place on the 21st of December. So as you see that it's going fast, so I think it's very exciting. We can go on to the other slide, please. Thank you. So, and I think we missed one, but it's okay, or haven't we? That was okay. No, so don't worry. So yeah, that's yeah, I'm mistaken. So we can go directly into the slide you've had, Elizabeth. So now I would like to tell you a bit about the stakeholders consultations. As I mentioned in the introduction, we have run several different types of consultations. We have run consultation with stakeholders, with citizens, with the public entities. And currently we are gathering together all the outcomes of those different consultation. And we can pass on to the other slide. All right, we have also created or initiated were different workshops with the member states, because we believe it's very important in order to sort of draft the text in the most up-to-date with the most up-to-date information. The workshops with the member states do help us to gather the up-to-date information. So with the series of different workshops that were organized with member states, we have tried to discuss how the education for environmental sustainability is supported within the different member states. We have also looked on the innovative pedagogy, the pedagogy that are used within the school education. And we have also tried to gather the information on what is the best support system in order to have the most up-to-date or advancing policies for the sustainable education. And I believe we can go on to the next slide. Thank you very much. So here you may see that the workshop also taken place with different stakeholders. We have tried to consult stakeholders, the European stakeholders, the national stakeholders, but also international stakeholders. We have looked on the policy level stakeholders, and we looked also on cross-sector collaborations and different partnerships. You can go on to the other slides. Thank you. Thank you. And here I'm just giving you the overview of those different consultations. There were also consultations with the education trade unions. We have also had consultation with the European universities, with different rectors, with the representative of students and staff. And with UN bodies, of course, with the liaison with the Sustainable Development Goals. And we can go into the next slide. Thank you, Elizabeth. So as I mentioned, the European Universities Alliances, as you may know, it's a new pilot initiative which is supported or co-funded through the Erasmus+. We have 280 institutions taking part in 41 alliances. And we are looking for a transdisciplinary long-term vision. We are there's a challenge-based approach. Okay, sorry. So I just heard somebody. So, and the European universities are sort of also comprising the sustainable education, the education for sustainable environment. So this, we have also included, or the outcomes of the different stakeholders consultations coming from the European universities, we have also included in our outcomes that will serve as a text for, as a text for the council recommendation. And we can pass on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So what are the outcomes that we gathered up till now? As I said, it's still not finished, but the outcome that we know about is that we do need a deeper change in our mindset that the sustainable education, the education for environmental sustainability, it's important. We do need to change. We need to have the whole institution approach, as I said, the holistic approach between different actors, different stakeholders on a different level. What is also very important to have the education for sustainability being a part of curricula, which can help, which can very much help to encourage to have the education for sustainability within the basic, let's say, educational policies. And we need the teachers' education. We know that we need the innovative pedagogies and different workshops for teachers. They know how to the best transmit the education sustainability, and we need effective partnerships. So we are again back to what I've said, holistic approach across different partners, different stakeholders. And we can go into the other slide, or past the other slide. Thank you very much. Yes, also we have came, but I won't go into too much detail on the Erasmus, because I believe that there is a colleague of mine who will take you through the new Erasmus mobility programs. But what I wanted to say that we also gathered information on the Erasmus Plus projects, that they do take into the consideration, or they do work on the education for sustainability. And here you see we have gathered 120 projects and 15 case studies. And there was also a workshop, stakeholder workshops in June. So we can go into the other slide. Thank you. Yes, we also launched a study on education for environmental sustainability. And through these studies, we had gathered also other information and outcomes that will be part of the council recommendation. And we can continue, we can pass on to the other slide. Thank you. So the public consultation, they are closed now. We have gathered almost 1,100 replies. And also we have gathered 96 position papers, which is also very important. The analyses are ongoing, but I think I have also given you I've already given you some idea on what to expect. And we can go on to the other slide, please. Thank you. Okay, and I have allowed myself to sort of show you the answers or to replies, the replies we have received during the public consultation. So the most contributions were received from citizens, followed by the academic institutions or research institutions. The country that is the most active, or was the most active during the public consultation, was Spain, followed by France and Italy. So we can continue. The next slide, please. Thank you. And here again, so I think I've touched upon this already, but what is needed to encourage people to take action on environmental sustainability? So they need guidance. That was one of the things that was coming up very often. It's the guidance how to change the behavior and to take action in everyday life. Also, we need more opportunities in decision making and more information on environmental issues and challenges. So I'll just read the first three because they're the most important. But of course, we will share the presentation with you so you can have a look yourself on the other replies. And we can go into the other slide. Okay, thank you. So how to support the educator? As I mentioned, the teachers and teaching is very important within this subject. So we need the professional development opportunities for teachers. We should encourage workshops and guidance and mentoring. We also need collaboration with different organizations working on sustainability, and of course, resources and materials. And we can go into the other slide. Thank you. So on EU level, what should be done at the European level to support the member states? So of course, it sort of goes in line with what I've said, but there is, of course, training, funding, information sharing, that is very important. And we can go into the last slide. Thank you very much. And we have just sort of used the one of the photos or one of the covering of the Brussels metro. I believe this happened when Greta was in Brussels, just to tell you how important it is as a subject. And I believe the last slide is just a thank. And of course, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to send us an email on the following address, or you can ask me and I'll try to reply, or I will come back with a reply later on. And thank you very much for the attention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Lucy, for that overview. It's obviously been a very thorough process, and you've obviously been very engaged in getting feedback from a very wide stakeholder community. We have some time for questions. I also see that some new participants have drifted in, so that's great. Welcome to those who have just joined. Henrietta, how is the chat looking? Do we have some questions or comments?
So far, we have loads of hellos from around the world, but no direct questions to Lucy as far as I can see. I would like to again encourage everyone to ask a question, and in the meanwhile, perhaps I can ask one myself.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
All right. Well, first of all, thanks, Lucy, for the presentation. We're really looking forward to the council recommendation. Can you maybe tell us, in practice, what will be the impact once the council recommendation comes out? What does that mean for the universities in Europe? But also, you know that today we also have many representatives from the EU neighborhood countries. What will it mean for them? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Henrietta. It's as I mentioned, it's a council recommendation, so we need to look at it from the legal point of view. So the Commission will issue with the council recommendation, and then it's the member state who should implement it. So once we have the council recommendation adopted by all the member states, then I believe the European Commission will start working on the implementation of the council recommendation. From my previous experience, because my previous experience, if I may allow, is mainly working on the implementation of the council recommendation on automatic recognition, which we are in the process of implementing. And I believe the process of implementing this council recommendation on education for environmental sustainability may be similar. So there will be, of course, different workshops, different peer support activities. There will be different projects through the Erasmus Plus that will help the member states to implement the council recommendation. The idea, of course, behind is to change the mindset, to change the pedagogy, and have the environment sustainability within the curriculum in all member states. So yes, so once we do have it adopted, then we will start working on the implementation within the EU.
Okay, good. Thanks so much. Do any participants have a question? You're welcome to raise your hand with the hand raising icon. If not.
As I said, Elizabeth, how do you see a link with Green Deal? It's a part of the Green Deal, of course. It goes in line with the Green Deal. It goes in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. So yes.
Okay.
And as I said, please feel free to send us an email on the address, on the email address that was shown on the last slide. We are happy to share the presentation, and I will stay with you for a bit. So if you have any questions later on, I'll be happy to reply. If the questions are more specific, I can transmit it to my colleagues and we will come back to you.
Okay, thanks so much, Lucy. Very punctual. And again, we will of course circulate the slides and as well as the video transmission to the wider higher education reform experts community as well. And just as you've been speaking, I think we almost doubled our participation. So people are still coming in. So there's obviously a lot of interest. Thanks again, Lucy. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being here. We're going to hear from one of your colleagues in a bit, more in detail on the Erasmus Plus program itself. So that will be complementary. Okay, why don't we move along to the next session? I would like to hand the floor over to Henrietta, who you've just heard from. Henrietta Stober from the European University Association, colleague of mine, working in the higher education policy unit and becoming quite an expert in the field of greening after working very hard on the recent study that EUA has conducted on greening trends and strategies in higher education, which is the topic of her presentation today. And Henrietta will then be moderating a panel with some institutional representatives who will be giving you their perspective on the issue and their experience. So Henrietta, please go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you very much for the introduction, Elizabeth. And indeed, we at EUA commenced this topic, at the beginning of this year, basically, but we have received a really great amount of information that also showcases how much interest and activities are already ongoing at higher education institutions around the EHEA and even beyond. And indeed, beyond is the focus of my presentation today. I will present some data that we have collected on greening or environmental sustainability at higher education institutions, but I will take the spotlight on the EU neighborhood countries, so a subsample of our survey, so to say, that we have collected. But before I will do so, I'll just say a couple of words. Sorry, yes, here we go. A couple of words about EUA, the European University Association. We are a membership association currently bringing together around 800 members. The main share of them are universities in the countries of the European higher education area, but also in 33 of the systems, we have the representatives of the national university associations with us. And as an organization, you do know that we run projects such as the Sphere project that brings us all together here today, but also we work on a really vast array of topics of interest, not just to our universities, but also to the policy level. We represent, for instance, the universities in the Bologna process. And as I already said, a topic of increasing importance is sustainability, and more specifically, environmental sustainability. So at the beginning of this year, we decided to run a survey to gather comprehensive data on what universities are doing, how they strategize about this topic, what challenges they face, and so on and so forth, because we really couldn't find a comprehensive overview besides some anecdotal evidence on this topic. And we gathered quite a good sample, 390 responses from 56 higher education systems. And with regards to the Sphere countries, as we call them at EUA, so the EU neighborhood countries, we got responses from 85 universities. A big thank you to everyone who actually participated in the survey, who is also here today. The main contributing countries were Armenia, I'm sorry, I have to move this over here, Armenia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Russian Federation. And out of those 85 institutions, 62 had concrete activities in place and could share with us a number of interesting examples on the topic. You can see here in this graph that when you look at the examples of the universities, about 42% of them said they implement measures on greening and environmental sustainability across the institution. But at another, sorry, I have to move this little picture around so I can see my own slides. At another third or so, the measures are implemented by faculties or departments, and 12% said they are currently discussing it and they're planning to work on greening in the near future. I can already tell you that both with regards to the EHEA, but also with regards to the EU neighborhood countries, universities really address this topic very strategically. So in our survey, 47% of the sphere countries had a strategy on greening in place, either as part of the overarching university strategy or as part of a dedicated strategy on either sustainability or greening even specifically. And again, in 17%, this is currently under preparation. The graph that you see here in dark blue is the EU neighborhood countries, and in orange is the overall EHEA country sample. I just wanted to put the direct comparison, even though you can see the differences are not so big, but I thought they were still perhaps interesting. So first of all, in both cases, the sustainable development goals are the main frame that universities link their strategies to. More than half of institutions in both of the samples do so. But then if you look further down in the graph, you can see national initiatives and activities or policies are of interest to university strategies or are linked concretely to university strategies in the EU neighborhood in 45% of the cases, in the EHEA 39%. Now this is a small difference, but I still wanted perhaps to underline it because we found the same narrative across the survey analysis if you compare the two samples. So it does seem that in the EU neighborhood countries, national policies, the regional context and so on and so forth do play an even more important role than they would in Europe or the EHEA overall. At the very bottom of that graph, you can see the EU Green Deal. A very small share of universities link it to their strategies, but we still wanted to point this out in our analysis because if I may repeat, we ran the survey at the beginning of this year. Now, the EU Green Deal was fairly new at that time, yet already in 15% of the cases, universities actually link it directly in their strategy. And we thought, okay, this is actually a big number. And of course, we do see the potential for this to increase in the future. Okay. So why do universities engage in the topic of environmental sustainability? Here in this table, I try to summarize the top 6 items that were selected in the EU neighborhood countries as very important. And you can see quite clearly that engagement from all actors across the university is of high importance when trying to implement activities around greening. We see here staff engagement, student engagement, but also leadership engagement as an item that was selected frequently as very important. Also, universities link the topic of sustainability and greening to their institutional values, to their third mission even. 55% said this is a very important driver. And then there's 2 items that really stood out in the comparison between EHEA and EU neighborhood countries. And that is, first of all, the local and regional context. As I had said with my previous slide, there seems to be a bit more emphasis on national or local level, but also collaboration with industry. This was selected in the EHEA sample by, I don't know, 20% or so, but in the EU neighborhood countries, 44% said collaboration with industry is a very important factor as driving forward their greening activities. So perhaps in our discussions later on today, we could come back to these particularities as we thought it was very interesting to see this regional difference. Now, in our survey, well, one of the main aims of our survey was really to gather examples of practice to see what universities are concretely doing in order to foster environmental sustainability as a societal goal, but also in order to green their own footprint. I would invite you to have a look at our survey report. I think it was already shared with you before this event, but there's also a link on my slides later on today to see some more concrete examples. But just to give you a couple on my slides here, in the EU neighborhood countries, physical greening of the campus is done by, more than 85%. 42% of the universities have really comprehensive policies in place for their greening, physical greening activities of the campus. Along the similar lines, minimizing the use of energy, water, or other resources. Again, a very large share of universities is active in this field, and 37% also have comprehensive policies or strategies in place around this area. Learning and teaching is really an area of high interest when it comes to sustainable development and greening. As already elaborated by Lucy in your previous presentation, the council recommendation that is forthcoming will also very much focus on this area. And so I wanted to highlight one part of our presentation where we asked universities what they're doing in the area of learning and teaching. And we saw many examples where universities offer extracurricular activities. We see micro-credentials and small courses on this theme, but we also saw that a large share of the universities considers greening in curricular reform in general terms, so really across all subject areas. 50% of the universities in the EU neighborhood countries said they consider more broadly the SDGs, but also a quarter said that they really consider greening specifically as a topic when reforming their curricula. We did also ask a number of questions around mobility, virtual mobility, the mobility of staff, teleworking, and so on. And perhaps in the context of the Corona crisis, it is not so much of a surprise that many of the universities now have digital tools for teleworking, teleconferencing, and virtual mobility in place. It is standard at 40% of the universities in the EU neighborhood countries, but many, many more have more or less ad hoc activities in place in this area as well. In the area of research and innovation, we've seen a number of examples around reducing the environmental footprint of laboratory research. Here in the EU neighborhood countries, around 75% of the universities have some activities in place, and 23% back it up with concrete policies, as this is also an area that we see potentially growing in the future. I would like to give another example from the EU policy level. There will be the Marie Curie programs that have just issued a green charter. So everyone who receives from the program funding for conducting their research would also be a signatory then of this green charter, which really aims at reducing the footprint of research activities. So I think also this is an area of increasing importance and interest at universities in the near future. And last but not least, as they do, universities collaborate also on the topic of environmental sustainability, and student organizations or student initiatives came up as one of the most important aspects in this regard, in the regard of collaboration in the EU neighborhood countries. Again, most of the universities are active in this field. 40% actually have a concrete policy or strategy in place on how to better engage with student initiatives when it comes to the area of greening. Of very high importance. Okay, in practice, I just wanted to show you here one slide on governance and how the activities are concretely implemented. You can see here again that central leadership plays an important role, and in the EU neighborhood countries, 15% actually had a specific portfolio in their leadership team. So for instance, a vice director for sustainable development or a vice director for greening, something like this. But then looking further down in the graph, there's also areas or universities that have dedicated offices or teams, either at the central or faculty level. That would be around a third of the universities. But I would like to also highlight the very end of the graph here. There's still a quarter of universities that do not have concrete governance and steering responsibilities in place yet. There's likely a strong overlap with those universities that also don't have a greening strategy yet. You know, we've seen cases where activities are really pushed by bottom-up activities, either from students and staff, and they're just not really spread across the university, but just in smaller parts, departments and faculties. So hence, there's also no central steering, at least not yet. With regards to the impact of their greening activities, you can see here on the graph a selection of the answers that we have received on what impact do your greening activities have, it reads in a way that you start the sentence, basically, the activities have, and then, for instance, improve the quality of life in campus, which would be the first line in this graph here. As you can see in the mix of colors, there's actually no strong consensus on the biggest area of impact yet. In dark blue here, you have strong impact areas. Orange is to some extent, and then in gray is not yet, but are expected to. So in summary, when you look at this graph, one could say that it is not, the real impact hasn't really crystallized yet, but there certainly are strong expectations of what these greening activities will bring in the future. So just to give you a couple of examples from the graph, on the highest impact was selected the quality of life on campus. This is certainly a link to greening the campus activities or to recycling and so on. But also very interesting to the reputation building, leading by example as a university, as an actor in society, came out quite strongly already. There was also, again, the link to learning and teaching. Greening activities have helped to create real-life learning opportunities for students. A strong impact already visible at a third of the respondents. And then positive impact on the surrounding community, so outside of the university. Moving then to the very bottom of the impact areas, as these are sorted by the level of impact that they have received. So the last two will be really areas of impact that are expected to increase in the future. Very interestingly, making the university more attractive and really using greening activities also as a recruitment tool for both staff and students. And then at the very bottom, indeed, the economic benefits. So universities do indeed expect that there will be some cost savings in the future. Our report also has a whole a whole section on procurement and these kind of areas. So there are high expectations that this will have economic benefits, but these are fairly small and not so visible at the moment. Right, and this is my last slide on data. Here I try to summarize the main challenges that universities are facing when trying to implement their activities on greening and environmental sustainability. And on the right side of this table, you can see potential enablers that would help in order to overcome these challenges. So in a way, the both sides kind of mirror each other. But let's start with the challenges. Of course, funding came out quite strongly, lack of specific funding for greening activities, but also general underfunding at universities was underlined by around half of the institutions in the EU neighborhood countries. And it was a similar trend also in the overall EHEA sample. Universities also told us about challenges around staff engagement, not so much around student engagement. There also seem to be, in a third of the cases, issues around the lack of strategies or the lack of strategic approaches to implement greening activities. And last but not least, also a lack of national policy support in more than a quarter of the universities. So when asking the universities how do they think these challenges could be overcome, of course, universities called for enhanced national funding, but also European funding support. And with the forthcoming council recommendation, we do hope that this will indeed be the case in the near future. Lucy already said there will be projects, and I think our next speaker from the Commission will also explain what this may look like in the future. In terms of what could actually be funded, well, there's certainly very high interest in peer learning and exchange with other higher education institutions on this topic. And we really hope that today's event is really a first step in this direction in the context of the sphere countries or the EU neighborhood countries. And further down in the table here, potential enablers also include activities that really help engaging more staff and also engaging more strongly institutional leadership. So this is it from my side. I think we will come back to a couple of the points that I mentioned in my presentation throughout the day when framing the discussions with our speakers. You can see here on my slide the link to our report. Even though this report only focuses on the data set of the European higher education area, of course, we will also share our these slides. So yeah, also we'll have the data for the EU neighborhood countries. So thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to today's discussion and also your questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Henrietta. Very rich survey and a good sort of indication of where universities are standing on the topic. We had one comment in the chat, which I can read out. I would encourage colleagues to share further comments or questions. We have had several requests for the presentation. We will of course share that. We will post everything on the Sphere website after the event, in addition, of course, to making the recording available. The question / comment came from Université Saint-Joseph de Beyrouth, from Fadi El Haj, who is the shareholder of the Fondation Diane, which is the university's Foundation for Education for Sustainable Development. And the comment is, I think that besides a project-based learning approach in curricula, it's very important to work with the quote unquote representations of teachers and students towards environment, their relation, and pedagogical obstacles. What do you think about that? So going beyond project-based learning approach and going, from what I understood from the comment, deeper into the relationship of the teacher and student towards the environment.
Yes, thank you very much for this comment, and I couldn't agree more. Indeed, you can also see it in a way that in the data that we have collected, universities really do emphasize that it's important to have a mix of a top-down, a strategic approach at the central level of the university, but also at the same time a bottom-up approach that especially involves student organizations and student initiatives. In the examples that we have collected from the universities, many talked about student projects becoming something bigger or growing from a small student initiative into something that is now being implemented at the central level of the university. But also thinking about what is going on at the side of the European Commission, I think besides the Council recommendation, there's also an activity that tries to bring together students and teaching staff from all levels of education, from primary, including secondary and higher education. I can look up the name of this initiative, but this is very specifically focused on learning and teaching. And there they will develop a platform where students and teachers from all levels of education can come together and actually discuss pedagogies, share their projects and insights on how to enhance education for environmental sustainability and so on. This was very recently launched, and after I finish speaking, I can Google it and I will put it in the chat.
Okay, great. There's another question that's come in from Alexandra Nikolic from Bosnia and Herzegovina, who asks, can you tell us more about university industry collaboration in regards to greening in higher education?
Thank you very much, Alexandra, for this question. And unfortunately, my direct answer would be no, I really cannot. We have not, whilst many universities have clicked on this option, actually, not many have provided us with concrete examples in this area from, in the written responses. We have collected a vast array of written responses where they share with us projects and so on. But I would imagine that these areas could, for instance, include projects that universities do when they send their students on internships, applied learning, those kind of activities.
That's maybe a question we could continue to pick up in the next panel as well when we from our institute.
That's true.
Okay, any more questions, colleagues? Okay. Oh, I see one. A thank you from Alexandra in the chat box. Okay. You will have more chances because we will continue now in just a moment. But if anything, if you have any burning issues, please do write them in the chat and we will try to address them. Lots of interest expressed in receiving your slides, Henrietta, as I said. So I would just reiterate again for those who have just joined, both the recording will be made available and the individual slides on the Sphere website. We have in the program now a very short break, really just to stretch your legs. As we are perfectly on time, I would suggest we take that opportunity. But again, it is a 5-minute break, so we will start again promptly at 10:30 with the next panel. So please do not disconnect, stay with us. But if you need to stand up, stretch your legs, get a coffee very quickly, you can do so. And in 5 minutes, we'll start again with the next session. Thanks, everyone. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had the opportunity to stretch your legs. We're going to start again, so we keep up with the pace of this program. Welcome to those who just joined us at our first ever Sphere Community Virtual TAM, Technical Assistance Mission, which is a lengthy way of saying a webinar for the Sphere community. We're going to jump back in again. We're going to continue with Henrietta, who's going to be chairing now a session with 2 panelists, with 2 speakers, who will give you some insight on their particular environments, their particular institutions. So Henrietta, the floor is again yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. And indeed, I would like to open our second session and a panel on institutional leadership, audit and assessment. And in this panel, we bring together presentations and a discussion with 2 representatives from 2 higher education institutions that already have established screening strategies and activities, and also have designed and tested different approaches of assessing these kind of activities. So as an introduction, our speakers will be Zamar Aziarkouti from the Holy Spirit University of Kaslik in Lebanon. Zamar is an associate professor at the School of Engineering at this university, and she's also the head of the Department of Agricultural and Food Engineering, and she was appointed the chair of the Green Committee in the university in January 2016. We also will have with us today Youssef Etai. He's from the University Paris-Nanterre in France, and he is the head of the Office for Sustainability and Social Responsibility at that university since 2019. And before that, he was the head of the Office for Information, Academic Counseling, and Employability at the same university. Again, I would just, before I give the floor to the speakers, I would just like to encourage you to ask questions via the chat function. And also when you do ask a question, please do let us know which country you're coming from. So we will have 2 presentations, and then we'll have a good share of time for your questions and answer. And we also, of course, prepared a couple of discussion questions ourselves. So first, I would like to give the floor to our Zamar. If you could please share your presentation. Thank you. Zamar, can you hear us? I think your microphone is off.
Yes. Yes, I lost my connection for a few seconds. I'm sorry. I'm trying to share my presentation. Can I go ahead?
Yes, it's loading. Just a moment. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, allow me to thank you for inviting me to this webinar to share with you our experience at the Holy Spirit University of Kaslik. It's really a challenging topic to live by and to talk about in this critical situation we are going through in our country. I will try to overview a little bit our mission, the drivers, how are we sustaining in these activities. So first of all, about our mission as Green Committee was created in 2016 based on an individual initiative, in fact, to support with a strong commitment to the environment. And our aim is to promote awareness, to think green, to change the mindset into the culture of being eco-citizens. We cannot do all this without tackling sustainability through the SDGs and the 2030 national agenda. And we are trying to help our community, our students, our staff to endorse new standards and behaviors through sustainable habits on campus and outside campus as well. So what were the drivers? Of course, the system level benchmarking is a great driver to this, and the institutional values, but we are trying hard and we are working hard, keen to switch the order to let, in fact, the sustainability embedded in our university culture and values. So by which means we are doing all this, we are trying, of course, to partnership for the goals. It's a great motto, we think, by. And our great success is the bottom-up approach. So communication was a great success to engage all stakeholders, all community into the process by, in fact, involving stakeholders by coaching processes, meetings, trainings, to let them be involved in all the projects we had on campus. So you can implement the best project ever if you don't have people who would jump in, who would be convinced. So it would be a loss of resources and a waste of time and resources, in fact. So we partnered also with scouts, with youth groups, NGOs to reach our aim. So as a university, we cannot talk about sustainability without talking about research and innovation. Of course, all universities have overcrowded curricula to have sustainability at the first rank. But in fact, we have surely topics and courses on sustainability in each program. But when we had our material recovery facility on campus, we took research and innovation to another level. So our AMRF was a living lab where the students conducted, in fact, several final year projects on composting, a new material for construction, recycling materials, renewable energy, etc. So it was really, of course, a success story for us as well. What are the green projects, ongoing green projects? We have, of course, the waste management project with the material recovery facility on campus. We, of course, prevent the waste to be dumped in the landfill, and we convert it into resources and basic raw materials to industry, showcasing, in fact, a feasible circular economy. The Carpooling Project, I think we are the first university who have the Carpooling Project, implemented Carpooling projects for students, staff, and faculty members. The Waterfall Project, it's the fountains all over the campus. It may sound as an ordinary project for European universities, but it's not for us, where the tap water is not, in fact, drinkable, and we are always used to buy water bottles, students on campus and outside the campus. So we partnered with a reliable water bottle company to increase trust in this water and to encourage students to use the fountain's water. Composting, we have also our composting area where students can conduct their projects on the composting composition, the different composting materials, and planting agriculture in this compost. To maintain our green area, we adopted the integrated pest management to decrease pollution and to preserve biodiversity. And in fact, we noticed that we had more bird species on campus, and we did the bird watching for the community to identify these species on campus and to increase awareness as well. Rural activities, what do we mean by rural activities? We support Lebanese farmers through several events. We also partner with rural cooperatives for catering and activities. And we have currently our hen house. We started a month ago with an initiative called Bring Your Bucket to Campus. So where staff and faculty members can bring their organic waste to feed our hens, and they can, after 3 times, they can take eggs or compost in return. And it was really, we were surprised by the number of staff who were involved in this initiative. Concerning the community service, we have a mandatory course in the GE and the general education courses at USAC. It is a mandatory course to all USAC students. So in this course, students are requested to do their 10 hours community service with an NGO or a community service. So we interfere in this course to give awareness sessions to all the students and to encourage them to volunteer with the community, with the Green Committee at USAC. So they can do control on all activities, they can do their own projects, and we succeeded to sustain our activities even online during the COVID-19 crisis. We worked online with the students, and we tried to help them to find the need in their local area. And we have really a huge success with our students and several startups really from working with the students at this level. The rural corporate social activities, in fact, to endorse Lebanese Apple Farmers Day, we had several events, Christmas sustainable events, Christmas sustainable decoration, from reclaimed decoration, and from wood, the hiking events, bird watching, to celebrate migratory bird days every year, and the Earth Day every year, of course, all these events. For the policies, we had different policies to reduce waste, to have the greener procurement, e-communication, greener event, to reduce plastic usage, of course, but we still need, in fact, to foster a spirit of cooperation, to convince people of this need, of the benefit of these policies on the well-being, on the workplace health, environmental, and productivity benefits. We still need, we still have a huge work to do. I put, in fact, some photos, very few photos about what I was talking about our different events, the work with the students, and the Bring Your Bucket to Campus. And of course, hard work always pays off. Besides the well-being and the enthusiasm that we foster on campus, we had several startups, as I said, that emerged from our working with the student, and it's really a pride for us. We had the iCollect, the Plasticycle, Plug and Flog, Uweta, who in fact is now an established small business, a student who worked with the chips bags to do several items, and she's really a success. And she worked with the Green Committee she volunteered with the Green Committee, and she had the idea at the MRF to do this work. What are the shotgun cartridge recycling also is currently a startup. We started our work with the Greening University's toolkit, was published by UNEP, United Nations Environmental Program, and In fact, to have success in these activities, you should have a full-time coordinator to work on these activities on campus. So we have a full-time coordinator, which is a passionate lady, in fact. And she did a training on the ISO 14001. Of course, we are part as well of UN Global Compact Lebanon, and we present to them our annual greening report as well as to UE Green Metric. And we are the national coordinator of UI Green Metric, and we try to have a network for green universities in Lebanon, but we still need to foster this networking. We still need support. We still need of a lot of we have lots of barriers that stop us from going forward. We are trying to work on the ground to change the mindset, as I said, and to have a dedicated strategy for the university concerning the green, the sustainability, in fact. That's it. I thank you, and I'm available for the questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Samar. This was very interesting and really lovely examples in there as well on the practical side, from the chickens that are looking very well fed to student startups. This is indeed one of the examples when I think of this previous question on how there's a link with industry and business. So very nice. I don't think there are, sorry, there are some questions coming in to you right now. Maybe I'll just read this out as this is a direct question to you before I hand over to the next speaker. There's a question from RF, from the Neo-Lebanon. The Holy Spirit University of Kaslik is very active in all EU-funded programs and is currently also leading capacity building projects. I wonder why USEC has not benefited from Erasmus Plus to support its greening strategy and to extend its experience to other Lebanese higher education institutions. The topic is a priority in the upcoming call for proposals. So more of a comment from the NEO in your country, but perhaps as he links this, you did mention the lack of strategizing. Are there any plans to link it to future projects, Samar?
Yes, totally right. I couldn't agree more. In fact, we should benefit more from all these projects, and because I think the higher management, the upper management, should be convinced more of all these strategies, all this need to be more involved in all the projects, even at this level, sustainability and the greening universities. But we did a great job till now, and we are ranked first green university for the fourth year in a row by UI Green Metric. I think it's they should be aware that it's not enough, and we should move forward. And I think I should do the step to let the university benefit from this project and for better networking. I pledge for this. So. Yes.
Very good. Well, we're looking forward to hear more about that future project then. As your colleague points out, capacity building is upcoming, and yes, indeed, greening will be one of the priority areas, but also this might be further addressed by our next speaker from the Commission. But before this, I would like to now hand over to the next speaker in this very panel, which is Yusuf. And Samar, if you could stop sharing your screen, and then I would invite Yusuf to share his presentation and give him the floor before we go into the discussion round.
Hello, thank you for this invitation. I will speak about Nanterre University in greening in higher education. This university is established since 60s. University is located to the west of the Greater Paris area. The Nanterre campus reflects the university's forward-looking policy with respect to sports and cultural activities, environmental commitment, and solidarity actions. Today, Nanterre University has 34,000 students. Sorry, it's like this. Nanterre University has 34,000 students. There are over 1,200 research professors and researchers in all disciplines of social and human sciences, as well as in sports, physics, physical education, mathematics, computer science, and engineering. Sorry. In 2017, the University of Paris-Nanterre established the very first service in France entirely dedicated to the social responsibility of universities and to sustainable development, RSUDD, and a vice president in charge of ecological transition and campus planning. It's our belief that thinking about the social and societal responsibility of the university gives greater scope to the teaching and the research mission, which are traditionally assigned to it. So this innovative approach gives a form and a lasting and strong institutional anchoring to the many commitments made by the University of Paris-Nanterre, whether in the field of social and territorial openness or sustainable development. At the University of Paris-Nanterre, social responsibility is broken down into 3 main missions, each of which correspond to a separate hub of the service. Openness to the surrounding locality and the sharing of knowledge with the Science and Society Hub. The promotion of student engagement and participation in contemporary societal issues with the Solidarity and Engagement Hub, and commitment to a sustainable and eco-responsible policy on the campus with the Ecological Transition Hub. We had also 2 levels in greening, DDRS and Eco Jardin. The Science and Society Hub is to give openness to the surrounding territory and the sharing the knowledge, sharing of knowledge. Science Society Hub make the science and the knowledge of the university benefit to the greatest number of people. That is the challenge of this hub. Measures are thus deployed to diversify the university audience by setting up courses, workshops, and conferences open to all. We have also actions aimed at bringing the university out of its role, are being implemented through interventions in priority school zones. Our goals make the university a dynamic player in its territory and make the university take up societal issues and ask questions. We have some actions and initiatives like the University of Permanent Cultures, whose mission is to provide lifelong learning, training, and to disseminate scientific culture. With nearly 500 students, it's accessible to everyone, regardless of age and qualifications. We organize scientific events for the general public on the RSUDD topics, which disseminate science and knowledge to all audiences in our society. The Solidarity and Commitment Hub, Solidarity and Engagement Hub is the goal is to promote student engagement and participation in contemporary societal issue. To promote this student engagement and to take them into account issues related to social responsibility by including them at the heart of training. Offer an appropriate university level response to societal challenges like student precariousness, migration. Make the university a fulfilling environment with some actions and initiative like solidarity grocery store, welcoming vulnerable groups. Since 2016, the university has offered French lessons 3 times a week to a group of around 20 political refugees and asylum seekers. The Solidarity Grocery Store was inaugurated in October 2017. It's the result of an ambitious student project. During the COVID sanitary crisis, it helps more than 120 students. We have also the donation of thousands of computers for schools, refurbished computers. Through this program, we wish to promote access to digital technologies for students in primary and secondary education. Paris-Nanterre University hosts civic service volunteers in order to stimulate, support, and coordinate and enhance the commitment of the entire university. We offer a wide range of solidarity and committed activities. Among the activities offered and coordinated by the RSUDD service, like school support or tutoring activities with children of college students, high school students, and activities contributing to the construction of a social and solidarity campus, university shared garden, beekeeping, etc. We have the 2 labels, DDRS and Eco Garden. Sorry. Sorry. We want to be an eco campus in an eco territory. Paris-Nanterre University has been committed since 2008 to a policy of sustainable development in the face of energy, climate, and environmental challenges, with the aim of raising the university community's awareness of good practices, the preservation and improvement of biodiversity, and the sustainable and eco-responsible policy on campus. The Ecological Transition Hub on the Paris-Nanterre campus is structured around 4 main themes: local biodiversity, waste management and recycling, water quality, and mobility, notably cycling. Some remarkable initiative, obtaining the DDRS label for sustainable development and social responsibility, installation of composting area for green waste on the campus, and the nest for passerines, signature of the regional biodiversity charter, obtaining the Eco Jardin label. Eco Garden, it's a label certifying ecological management of green spaces. And the installation of 400 bicycle locations between 2016 and 2021. The 2 labels, the DDRS and the Eco Jardin. These two labels, the goals of our university is to raising awareness and of sustainable development among the entire community through the organizations of events, and make the campus a model through the introduction of good practices, ecological gestures, promoting alternative forms of mobility and responsible markets and consumption toward a more ecological management of spaces. Eco Garden lead to better biodiversity, by preserving soils, insects, and plant species, and changing the maintenance methods of green spaces, all without using pesticide. DDRS referential containing 5 headings: governance, training, research, environment, social policy, and territorial anchoring, both based on self-diagnosis, supporting documents, and an audit committee. Thank you for hearing me. It's the end of the presentation, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Youssef. That was very interesting, and also very interesting to see how your university embeds their greening activities in such a vast number of community engagement and social or sustainability activities overall, really. So it's linked to so many different areas. That is very interesting. We would like to now move over to the discussion round. I'm monitoring a little bit the chat. But I see that there's no direct question to you, Youssef, but there is a comment from a university who underlines the interest of collaboration and cooperation with other universities. I think this came up already a couple of times in the presentations today, how important that is. I see now a question from Ahmed. Did you have any actions against nuclear power plants? If that is a question to Youssef, perhaps? Ooh. Youssef, are you still with us?
It's a difficult question.
Yeah, this is the use.
It's a difficult question, so I don't have the answer. No, we don't have any plan on this topic. Sorry.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Yes, I am Vera Zabotkina, Vice Rector from Russian State University for the Humanities. It's in Moscow. Thank you, Yusuf, for a very, very interesting presentation. I've got a couple of questions. First, you mentioned that university must be a dynamic player. Agree. At the same time, you say that we should raise awareness of sustainable development. Sustainable development excludes dynamics. So how do these two concepts correlate? That's the first question. And the second, about mobility. You mentioned that we should find new alternative forms of mobility. What do you mean by mobility? Academic student mobility or any other kinds of mobility? Thank you.
So, the first question was about sustainability and
dynamics.
Dynamics.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
If I understand the question, how do we manage the sustainability in the policies of the university, and how the whole community participate to this dynamic?
Yes, I mean, sustainability means stability and stable, no dynamics. That's what I mean. How do you manage to combine both dynamic approach and sustainability? How do they contribute to each other?
For us, sustainability is that the university don't increase the global warming at its own level. It's the most important with the consumption of energy, notably. And for the second question, the mobility of the researcher is a topic, an important topic, because we don't want to reduce the exchange between researchers all over the world. It's a more important thing, and we have to think other ways to exchange. Like today, we don't have to move each other to Moscow or another country in another town. So we have to think all together to a different way to meet other researchers, and the mobility is an important thing, but we have to think about solutions to reduce the impact on the global warming.
Mm-hmm. So you propose virtual mobility. It should be online mobility.
not only it's a solution, but the informatic or the computers increase the global warming too.
Yes, I agree. And thank you so much. And then, like, as soon as the discussion period, I'd like to add that online meetings, they reduce, of course, global warming, but they also reduce brain activity. The neurologists, cognitive specialists say that when you don't have eye contact, you don't see the eyes, and there's no emotional contact. And also they say that not all parts, not all areas of brain are activated when you have no eye contact. So it's wonderful to have online substitution of real mobility, but it reduces both just warming and reduces your brain power.
We have to do a mix between the two manier to it's like this. Yeah, I agree
Very
with
good.
you.
If I may jump in, and indeed, you know, we also have this discussion with regard student mobility, and it was also picked up in our survey, and of course also picked up by the European Commission when it comes to the Erasmus Plus mobility, the offer of virtual versus hybrid versus in-person, or let's call it real mobility. Of course, there's also drawbacks in terms of the cultural impact and learning experience when it comes to student exchanges. But perhaps we can put a pin in this particular area for the next panel when we actually talk about Erasmus Plus, and move on. I see there's a couple of more questions coming up in the chat, and one of them actually also links directly to the first area that I would have liked to discuss with both Yusuf and Samar, if she's still with us. Samar, I cannot see. I mean, I'm not sure if you're online.
Yes,
If you could,
yes,
yes, wonderful.
Yes, I am.
Just to check, very good. So there is a question on international quality assurance schemes, whether they have developed standards sufficiently to also respond to this urgent topic on greening. And indeed, this also links to the first discussion question that I wanted to table to both of you, and that relates to both impact and monitoring. I think, Samar, you already mentioned an annual greening report in your presentation, and I would like to invite you to elaborate a bit more on this. What does this imply, and how do you monitor impact? What steps do you take? Yusuf, you talked about a DDRS label, which I believe is a national network initiative and also involves some monitoring and assessment. So maybe you could also give us some examples, you know, on how you actually check what impact your activities have. But perhaps we can start with Samar.
Yes, in fact, we at first we didn't know that we are doing a good job. In fact, but we started to search for networking, and there where we meet with the UI Green Metric, and so UN Global Compact also, and we align our activities with what is usually done in this area. So in this way, we can say that we are assessing, and when we present our documents to also to UI Green Metric, and we what we get back at our ranking as first university. It's a sort of assessment as well. We don't have a QA, a well-defined QA for the greening activities. So we should maybe find a real assessment, a well-defined assessment ways to to assess our activities. And of course, our success stories with the students, if I may say, so the startups that emerge and all the awareness that we are doing. So I think it's a good way of assessing as well. It's not well defined, but it's a way. I don't know if I answered the question. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Samar. And handing over then to Youssef, can we call the DDRS label an assessment tool, or is it something else? What are your experiences in monitoring?
Yeah, the label DDRS is a manner to follow the goals of sustainable global development, and we have to think about our consumption of energy and our governance about the question of the topics of social responsibility and sustainable development. The label is a way to have a roadmap and a planning for 3 years or 5 years to put some actions and some initiatives to reduce our impact on global warming mainly, and to be a university of well-being for the staff and for the students. It's important. With this label, we made the link between social responsibility and sustainable development. For us, it's not, and for us and for the CIRS, which is the operator of this label, it's the two topics are linked. They can't be treated separately. They must be treated in a only answer. We have to connect them because they are connected.
Very good. Thank you very much for this response. And then perhaps moving on from the institutional level a bit more towards the national level, maybe since we were just talking about the DDRS label, I will first stay with you, Youssef. In our survey, we asked the universities whether they actually get national support either through national level or through national policy and legislation. And in Europe, it was actually only France that had legislation in place that concretely linked greening and greening activities to universities. I think I would translate it as the climate law, which is more or less a new legislation which calls, for instance, about the establishment of the green campuses and so on. And I believe that was also how this label was born. So my first question goes to you, Youssef. This national policy or legislation, was that really a game changer, or were the universities or your university already active in sustainability and greening before that? What was the impact?
Yeah, we were active before that since 2008. We reduced our impact on the biodiversity and on the soils of the university in a way to reduce watering and reduce the pesticide. But it's true that the ministry gives us objectives. We have a part of our commitments from the ministry. We have a resources contract with the ministry for the period of 2020 and 2024, which we had a contract with the ministry, and so we are engaged to do some actions and to lead our university to a high level of responsibility in the two topics.
Very good. So there's actually indicators set by the ministry in the framework contracts with the universities. Very interesting. And leading over to Samar, do you have a similar national level activity in place? I saw in your presentation you did mention national level system level benchmarking. Is that something similar to what Yusuf just explained, or do you receive other support or nudges from your ministry on greening?
No, in fact, we don't have, we have no support from the ministry, from the government. Usually it's, if I may say, it's support from the university to the government. Actually, we have a lot of laws on the environmental policies, but we need enforcement of the law. It's very important. Because we don't have this culture, this mindset I was talking about in the presentation. So what we are doing also, it's working with the government, working with the Ministry of Environment, for instance. We did several workshops with on the topic on sustainable hunting. We gathered we gathered the hunting groups with the Ministry of Environment to make some changes to the law, so to enforce to find ways to enforce the law. For instance, it's an example. So there is there's no support, but it's a workshop. It's a workshop at all levels to move forward for sustainability issue with sustainability issues. We have the 2030 agenda, of course, and we go by the 2030 agenda of the government as well. We have the same direction. We align our activities with this agenda, but that's it. We don't have labels, schemes, whatever.
No, but thank you. That was very nicely put. It's a workshop, and it's actually the other way around. The universities supporting the ministries. So thank you very much for this comment, Samar. Moving on then to my next question, that would be then from the national to the international level. I also wanted to ask both of you how your university's greening activities impact your international collaboration. So in terms of how you do exchange or projects with other universities, but also how you participate in international research. Is there any impact in this regard? And perhaps I can give the floor first to Yusuf.
This is a difficult question. We are part of a European university within the framework of EDUC. It's a European Digital University. And this is one of the topics on which we can share our sustainable development practices. It's about practices, exchanges, and I don't know the English for. It's to share the best practices between the partners of the European Digital University.
Thank you. And Samar?
I hope it will have an impact soon in the future, but I'm afraid to say till now, no. It doesn't have any impact on the exchange, on the because mainly we are working on the national level. We are working on inside the campus with direct community, surrounding community. And we need more collaboration in research. It's not at the level of sustainability. It's more about exchange, universities, research as a holistic approach, not about sustainability. But I hope it will have an impact in the future.
Very good. Thank you so much. And I think I would like to now pick up a question from the chat. And well, that's also kind of a difficult one, I think. Let's see how it goes. There's a question on what is the best practice in greening process implementation in higher education. So I guess the question goes towards your personal recommendation for other universities, the best practice that you would tell them when they want to start a greening activity or want to implement greening activities at their university.
But can I answer?
Yes, please. Sorry, I should have, yeah. I was nodding at you in an actual live setting. You would have seen. Sorry.
Okay, no, it's okay. I can say that you should always give incentive to people when implementing projects. You should communicate. You should involve all people at all levels, and you should the best. Our success stories come from this two communication, involving people, stakeholders, and giving incentive. That's what I can say about greening activities. So
yeah, thank you. And Youssef?
And for me, it's difficult to mobilize the entire university community. So we have to listen to the students, to listen to the staff, and to make a real community of decision to make our university a better university for these two topics. So we have to associate the student associations. It's more important. It's more important. I think the students must be a part of the solution. They are more sensitive to these two topics than the staff, I think.
Indeed, but if we turn this around, would you say that it wouldn't be the staff who needs more encouragement and involvement?
The staff needs training too. It's important to offer some training to the staff and to promote the sharing of good practices between in the heart of a community and with other partners like universities or collectivities. It's more important to offer training. Yeah.
Yes, very good. Yes, please, Samar.
Yes, I just wanted to add that we should go. We are a small campus, and we went by baby steps and small wins. So it's very important as well to go, not to aim for all the campus, and to go to test the ground and to let people go into the project smoothly. So it's very important as well.
Very good. Thank you so much. I'm looking at the chat, and I would like to encourage people, if they have a question, to ask it now or raise their hand. And if not, then I would give back the floor to my colleague Elizabeth, and of course also thank our two speakers, Samar and Youssef, for their contributions. I hope it is okay that we will also share your presentations with the participants. And I hope you can stay with us for a bit longer for the discussions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Henrietta. Thanks again to the speakers. Rich discussion. We have foreseen now in the program another short break before we take our next session, where we will be joined by Jose Manuel Fernandez Arroyo from the European Commission as well, who will be looking more in depth at what is foreseen in the EU program, specifically Erasmus Plus, on the topic of greening. In order to give him the time to arrive, we will take that break now. It also gives you another opportunity to stretch your legs and take a coffee. We will start promptly at 11:45. So please do, if possible, stay connected. And if you need any technical assistance in the meantime, we encourage you to contact either myself or Nicole Font privately in the chat in case we can help you. I would just do a pre-announcement. After the session with Jose, we will go into a breakout session. You will have the opportunity to choose your breakout group via the icon you see in the bottom of your screen that says breakout rooms. We will enable it come the time. And we will have 2 sessions today, one looking specifically at green campus initiatives and one looking at national networks and dialogue platforms for greening the campus. So please do continue to participate if you can in those sessions, because we'll be able to go even more depth on those topics and we'll have more case studies. And we really would encourage you to stay through the end of the webinar if at all possible. So that's just a preview. But for now, we'll take a break. Join us again at 11:45. So you have 20 minutes, plenty of time to get a coffee or a tea. And please do be timely. Thanks to everyone. See you shortly. Okay, colleagues, I think we'll get started again. I hope you had a good break. I'm going to pass the floor over to Henrietta again, who will introduce the next session and introduce our speaker, Jose, who joins us from the commission. Jose, I'll be sharing your presentation. So if you need me to change the slides, just let me know.
Exactly, and also warm welcome back from my side. I hope you had a nice break and I hope we can continue the interesting discussions that we already had this morning. Now, the Erasmus Plus program and support from the European program levels came up already several times in the discussions this morning. So we're very pleased that we have with us today here as the next panelist, Jose Manuel Fernandez Arroyo. He's the head of sector Erasmus Plus implementation at DG EAC, the European Commission's Directorate General for Education and Culture. And he will tell us a bit more about the news in the new Erasmus Plus generation when it comes to greening and sustainability. Jose, I hope you're here with us. I saw you in the list.
I'm here.
Perfect. Hello.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone, and thanks a lot for inviting me. It's really a pleasure for me to be here, and hope that this will be a good moment to interact with you and to exchange opinions and your experience also on this, which is highly interested for us. But first, I will try to explain a little bit to give some context of the new Erasmus program and the greening of the Erasmus program that we have started with this new MFF in 2021. So if we can go to the first slide. Well, you have already introduced me. I'm Jose Manuel Fernandez, and I work in DG EAC in the Erasmus Coordination Unit and in the program implementation and design. And I'm happy to be contacted by you by any means. You can find me quite easily. You put Jose Manuel Fernandez Arroyo in internet or by LinkedIn or any way you can send me an email for anything. So I'm happy. We are here to talk with you. So feel free to contact us at any moment. But then first, just a short view of what we have done for the designing of the new Erasmus program. I think that this could be of interest for everybody. Maybe some of you has been even involved on this co-creation process. You for sure know the Erasmus program, which started this next year will be 35 years ago. So we will be of anniversary next year with the 35th anniversary. We have already reached in the 30, we already reached 9 million. Now we are overpassing the 10 million participants. You know that in 2014 we had a great revolution of the program, because all the educational programs that we had in the union, with the Leonardo programs, etc., came all of them under the umbrella of the Plus, of the Erasmus Plus. We put all of them together under the Erasmus Plus, covering the formal and non-formal education programs. And now we are covering all the sectors from higher education to schools, vet, adults, youth, and sport. And we have now also Discovery U under the Erasmus Plus program, for example. But then we come to the revision of the program and what we want for the new program in 2020-21 to 2020-27, which is the new MFA, the new multi-annual financial framework for the union in this weird timing of seven years. We jumped from 7 years to 7 years. And we started around 2018 with the designing already of the new Erasmus program, taking into account all the different surveys, satisfaction surveys, midterm reports, etc., but also in a co-creation process with all the national agencies, stakeholders, etc., to design this new program and how we want it to be. And I will come to this later. But first, let me tell you that in the next slide, you will see that there is a general agreement about the countries, about the Commission, about the Union, about the stakeholders of the relevance of the Erasmus program. And this has been translated in a significant increase of the budget for the next 7 years. So we will have almost double the budget. If you put this in context of all the programs in the union, you can see how relevant it is, because while many of them has had to include some cuts, Erasmus, on the contrary, has the budget almost double. And this say a lot about the trust on this program and the expectation with this program in the building of Europe, in the building of the union. So we expect to have 70% of this budget, more or less, dedicated to mobilities, the 30% of the cooperation projects, and to reach in the next 7 years another 10 million of participants. These are our expectations for the next seven years and for the next 7 calls that we have already launched one of them, and we will soon, and I will mention it at the end, the next one, the call 2020-22. But then if we go to the next slide, just let me say some few words about the novelties that you will find in this new program that probably you have already found it when reading the program guide of the call 2021. We have now more mobilities. Mobilities for schools are included in the Key Action 1 for adults. There are new initiatives for teachers, trainers, and youth workers. We have recognize the key role of the teachers and trying to provide more with the teachers academies and initiatives, similar initiatives. The implementation, we always try to make it more user-friendly and digitalized, and we will have now this European Student Card Initiative, the Erasmus app, and I already mentioned Discovery EU, full part of the Erasmus the Erasmus Plus program, which is a very popular initiative. You know, we have launched now this time with I think like 60,000 Interrail tickets, free Interrail tickets for youngsters of 18 years old, and we receive, believe me, much more requests than tickets that we have. If we go to the next one, we can see that some other initiatives and novelties, European universities. I'm sure that you are quite familiar with this initiative, and the vocational centers of excellence, the teacher academies that you mentioned. And we want a program more inclusive, have a focus on newcomers and small organizations, so that we have more of them. And I will tell you a little bit now when talking about the priorities. And sport has more importance now in the dimension of sport in the new program. But now let's go to the next slide and the priorities, because I was mentioning that we wanted a new program, and we had a super solid base with Erasmus, a program already running for almost 35 years, and very popular, one of the flagship programs in the union. So the base was really strong, really solid, and we didn't want to do a revolution of the program, but we want to do an evolution. And what we wanted to have after analyzing the needs and the answers from the participants, the stakeholders, our co-creation process, we had very clear that we wanted a program, a new Erasmus program, more inclusive and diverse, because we wanted the program with more people, because we have more money, but not also the same kind of people. We want also that the people who never think about participating in Erasmus to think, oh, Erasmus may be also for me. We want small organizations taking part of it. We want newcomers. We want people who never think about doing an Erasmus. So we want it to be more inclusive and diverse. We want a program with a digital dimension in the education, more important, providing more solutions on it. And I think that having this talk on a virtual mode is a good example of why. And all of you have experienced how in the last 2 years, the digital world come like a tsunami to our work, to the world of work, but also to the work of education. And nobody can be left behind. And Erasmus has to provide tools and support to all the teachers, schools, etc., to better use the digital education to reach everyone and to adapt it to the new times. And finally, and then I will talk more about this, we wanted a greener Erasmus, because you can see that the claim is in the street. Before the pandemic, this was one of the major topics of discussions, and our younger generations were really pushing us, especially to fight against climate change, to provide solutions, and of course Erasmus could not be behind this. And this becomes more relevant, and now we can pass to the next slide. At all levels in the union, especially when our president Ursula von der Leyen launched the European Green Deal, and when we had this Climate Action Pact, where the union will join efforts to go to fight against climate change and to go towards carbon neutral union. This was explained as by our president as our generation man on the moon moment. And I think that I have to say that I agree. I mean, this is an incredible transition for all of us, which will come to all the parts of our life. And of course, Erasmus wants to be part of the solution. And in the Green Deal, education has been recognized as a recognized key role on this transition, on this change of mentality, and to have a successful transition for a greener Europe. But how are we going to go for, and we can pass to the next slide. How can we go for a greener Erasmus when, for example, when you think about Erasmus, for sure, you are thinking about mobilities. And when you are thinking about mobilities, you are thinking about flights, and flights directly connected with environment and climate change and pollution and all this carbon footprint. Well, yes, I have to say yes. And I have to say that also Erasmus is not only mobility, it's much more than this. Erasmus is probably the most powerful educational tool that we have at the level of the union. And this is the strongest point of Erasmus. But before using that, we have to guide, to lead by example, and the mobilities has to be one of the parts where we need to provide solutions. So I will start talking first about the mobilities and what we can do. And when confronting this, we had to take into account the reality, and the thing is that we want to continue with mobilities because the experience of Erasmus is intrinsic with the mobility to living in another country, to be embedded in the culture, in the universities, in the life of the other countries. Is the whole experience, which makes sense. So mobility is something that we really want to keep maintaining, and we have to take into account that the diversity of realities that we have across all Europe. That's thing allowed to impose that, okay, now you are going to travel only by train, or you are going to travel only by bus, because this is not feasible. I mean, we have islands, we have remote regions, we have places where train is not really, the network of trains, it is not so developed like in other places, or buses, or the combinations, or the distance. And we don't want to limit the experience only to the closest regions to your place. So what can we do? Because in the other hand, we had a lot of participants, younger participants especially, who really wants to make use of the sustainable means of transport. And we want to encourage you, to encourage them to use that and to facilitate it. And we think that the key word is that, to encourage and facilitate that all the users who wants to use green means of travels, meaning low carbon means of travel, which is mainly a train and bus, or collective means of transport, but could be others like a bike or others, can have some support to do this. So we have introduced in the rules of the mobilities that the participants who are using this low carbon means of transport will receive a top up, will receive an extra money to do this travel, depending on the number of days, and depending on the action, it will also vary with the distance that they have to cover. Sorry, because it's maybe some noise there. This is the police or ambulance. I hope that they will pass soon. Sorry about this. I hope that you hear me and still hear me. Okay, thank you. And so we have introduced this. So now when they want to use, for example, trains instead of flight, then they will receive more money to do this travel. They have to declare that, yes, I will use this low carbon means of transport, and they will receive more money. But not only this, they will be also entitled to have more traveling days, because many times traveling by train, for example, it requires that you do some changes. It will not be, I mean, now if you think about this, you can be almost in any part of Europe by flight in one day. But by train is not so evident, or by bus. So they may need more travel days, and they will entitle up to 6 travel days in total, three per travel during the mobility, if they need to use them. Also to encourage that they enjoy the travel. If you travel by train, you may enjoy the travel. It is longer in time, but it's also part of the experience probably. So don't hesitate to do it if you want to do it, because we will facilitate it to you. We also are going to monitor the carbon footprint of the program, because this goes hand by hand, that we need to know how these measures are improving the way that our beneficiaries are traveling in terms of carbon footprints. So we want to monitor it, being able to calculate that, knowing what is the distance covered and the mean of transport that is used for the main distance that is covered in this travel. In the future, we will also facilitate that our participants can calculate themselves the carbon footprint for different options of traveling, and then taking the decision more informed about what kind of mean of travel they are going to use. And this is about the mobility. So first step, I cannot say that this will make a full change, but it's our first step to change towards a carbon neutral program. But more important than this, because even if we cancel all the mobilities that we do in Erasmus, the impact on the carbon footprint at the planetary level will be, I mean, ridiculous. What is more important is the change of mentality, to open the mind that other way of traveling, other means of transport are feasible, that they are considering when they are going to do a travel that, why not train? It's not so evident they have to take Ryanair or whatever. There are other options. So the main goal for us is the change, the raising awareness, the change of mentality. This is where we think that Erasmus can really make the difference. And then we are not stopping here. We want to have a whole approach for the program. So if we go to the next slide, we want that our activities also during the mobilities have a green component. We want the projects to take into account this green dimension, to provide the participants with possibilities to participate, for example, in projects at local level by local NGOs that has a green component. We also think that in the future, a kind of eco tips can be provided to the participants, adapted to the country where they are traveling, or the cities where the participants are doing a mobility as a student to, I don't know, to Madrid, and then I received some tips about how to use public transport, how to recycle, where I can buy local things like this, so that their experience can be greener, and we support them with advice, so tubes, practical things, so that the ones that want to do it can do it easily. And we also take attention to all of them, so that they start thinking about, okay, why not take the bike if it's so easy here, or the public transport, wow, this is really cheap if I compare with other options, etc., etc., etc. And this will be included in the award criteria. And it is also already mentioned in the accreditation how this green measure has to be raised a reflection also in the organizers. But going one step further and not limiting also to the mobility project, and then I go to the next slide, and I almost finalizing now. But this is another important part, the cooperation partnerships projects and how they can be greener, because here we also think that we can do a difference in terms of in the educational dimension. First of all, we want more projects addressing environment and climate action as a thematic topic. How can we do that? Well, we have introduced sustainability and fight against climate change as one of the horizontal priorities of the program, meaning that when projects has to choose a priority, this is one of the priorities that they can choose. So we expect to have an increasing number of projects dealing with this kind of issues, with these topics. But we want all the projects, no matter if they are tackling this topic or another topic, immigration, inclusion, any topic, that organizations, that the project itself take this green dimension also into account. And for this, we think that all the projects can make something, can do something, because no matter if you are in a school or if you are a huge university, something can be done in your daily life of the project. it cannot be the same because, for example, for a huge university, probably they have an entire strategy for greening the university, etc. But a small school can do also this. They can take small steps like, okay, now we will try to have at least these meetings on virtual, avoiding traveling. We can recycle the paper. We can decide not to do plastic goodies. We can do, etc., etc., etc. Many things. So there are a lot of things that can be done. And for this, we want also to facilitate. For this mean, we are planning to establish a resource center, a Salto resource center, to provide with good practices, to facilitate trainings and sustainability advices, to organize meetings, etc., between participants, between the national agencies on green. So fully dedicated to green. This will come in the next years, providing help to the national agencies and elaborating dedicated material that can be shared with participants, with organizations, etc. Because there are a lot of things that are being doing already, and more things can be done, but also more things can be shared, and a lot of organizations can take ideas from other organizations and share their own ideas, and we want to facilitate that. Finally, when we are talking about green and about a green strategy for Erasmus or a green Erasmus, Erasmus is a program that is like a family. This is decentralized. We have the national agencies, we have the participants, we have the organizations, and we have the commission. And we want all of us to be part of it. So we want that the national agencies, organizations, participants, us, the GEAC, take a moment to reflect about this and what else can be done. We have started to try to do our meetings greener, always accessible by public transport, always with local food, never giving plastic goodies, having more virtual meetings, etc., etc., etc. And I'm sure that this is a concern for all of you, and this meeting, I think that is a clear proof of it. And this is a travel that we initiate now. And these are only some first steps. We can all improve together. So let's be part of it, and let's keep doing this. I finalize saying that, of course, the most important part of the Erasmus is the organizations, is the participants. And the new program Erasmus is now, as you know, we had already a call 2021. In March, but soon we will have the call 2022. We expect to have it before the end of the year, recovering what should be the normal rhythm of Erasmus, with the calls in November and then the deadlines around February, March, etc. So with time enough for organizations to be prepared, and with time enough for a quality assessment of projects, etc., etc., etc. So I will stop now. It has been, I hope that I managed to give you a glance of some of the measures to have a greener Erasmus program. And of course, I'm happy to talk with you and to have some questions or some dialogue between us about this or any other topic of Erasmus. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jose, for the very comprehensive overview about what's new and upcoming in the Erasmus Plus program in the area of greening. A lot of information there for mobility and the projects, and very inspiring and aspiring, of course, also for the future of the program. I just wanted to, before I start the round of questions, highlight something from the previous discussions. In case you weren't with us, you're absolutely right, of course. It's not all about mobilities, and it was already previously mentioned by our participants that there really is keen interest in future Erasmus projects that bring universities together to peer learn on this topic, and also that help them strategize on their greening activities. So we're really looking forward to the new program generation. I think I will start with one question from our end, just again underlining that in today's round, we we have the most participants are coming from the EU neighborhood countries. So I just wanted to ask you, those new rules for mobility, those new opportunities under projects, will they apply 100% also to participants in international credit mobility? Will all these apply in the capacity building calls? Will former Tempus countries also have access to the new measures like those Salto centers and so on that you just mentioned?
So these new measures will be gradually applied to the program. For the international, that will be more. We will recover now the international in the new call. As you know, in the last calls, most of the international mobility was not opportunities were not there because still the budget negotiations with external family. But now in the call 2022, you will be able to see all the international dimension also included in the program. There will be, it is starting with the normal key action 1 mobilities. With international, I think that by now it will not yet be implemented. It is more difficult also because in many cases, depending on the countries, the distance, it is more complex. So we need to find probably other solutions for this. Although with neighboring countries, this will be much easier, and I think that this is a very good opportunity also for this. And in projects, this will be implemented also gradually. And I have to check now with capacity building. I'm not sure. I think that is still not implemented at the level of capacity building, but it doesn't mean that will not be in the future.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I then would like to ask a question from the National Erasmus Plus office in Lebanon. There was 1 or 2 other questions that went into the similar direction. I read it out. Will there be a discussion with national authorities about national priorities that are going to be defined for the new program? I suspect this would be linked to the capacity building calls, this question.
Well, the priorities for the entire program, the horizontal priorities that I already mentioned, because this has been part of a long discussion during the last 2.5 years with national authorities, but also with national agencies, etc. Are the green, inclusion and diversity, digital, and participation in democratic life. These are horizontal priorities that percolate through all the program and that are present and that has been challenging to translate into changes in the rules, like, for example, in green, in this case, as I have explained. These are horizontal priorities, but then in the program, we also have sectorial priorities, and these sectorial priorities are defined each year. And so we try to have stability. Of course, the political needs, the policy needs change every year, and these are discussed. These horizontal priorities that I have now mentioned, we hope that they will be for the next 7 years, because this is how we want the program to be, while the horizontal priorities that will be defined each year for higher education are defined at the level of the annual work program first, so discussed with national authorities each year. We have the last annual work program 2022 adopted or will be adopted in the next month. It has been already approved by the committee 2 weeks ago. So will be adopted by the college soon, and then the sectorial priorities are there. There will be in the program guide, and then for the next year, again, there will be a revision according to the reality, and each year are changing with some stability. I mean, some stability of course. I have to mention also that you can check already the program guide 2021. that was published in March with the first call. March is a very weird moment for Erasmus, but this comes from the closing of the negotiations of the new MFF. It was imposed to us, to all the programs in the union, to say so. So we adapted, and we give very short timing so that we still can have projects of Erasmus in this year, so that we don't have a disruption. But now in November, we will have again a publication at the end of November, early December, of the call 2022. So you can check there in the program guide, if you don't check the annual work program, which is a more complex document, all the priorities, sectorial priorities, and the description with the actions, capacity building, etc., will be there very, very, very soon.
Excellent, thank you very much. And I'm sure many of us are looking forward to the publication of this call, and then also to the IC International Credit Mobility that had to take a pause this year. There's another question here, which links also to our previous discussions, which we talked a lot about the involvement of student organizations and how they play a role in universities, greening and environmental sustainability activities. And it was, of course, found that students are a crucial participant also when it comes to things that happen at the central level of the university. Now, Jose, you mentioned co-creation before in the context of the preparation of the new Erasmus program, I'm sorry. And we have a question here on how students will be involved in the future in driving forward the plans that you have for Erasmus in the area of greening.
Well, I think that this is a very, very good question, and also it worries us a lot how they can be involved. And the reality is that if you think about this, I mean, at the daily news, etc., they maybe go one step further than us, and this worries us because Erasmus cannot be behind them. That's why we are proposing this option, because they are already taking decisions of taking the train, etc. So what we want to do is that first, not to impose, but to let them choose based on information, raise their awareness, and get them, offering them possibilities, so that we encourage organizations, universities, etc., to provide them with information about where they can participate on green projects, etc. Also with these tools that I mentioned that we want to develop in the future, that eco tips, if you want to call like them, like, okay, if you are in this city, how you can do this, etc., etc. We are also, we think that it's important to raise awareness about the way that you are moving and that you are doing your mobility, because we know by facts that the mobility from your city to the university city and going back and forward is not the only mobility that Erasmus does. Most of them do a lot of tourism, of course, and they visit around. And we want to encourage them to do these mobilities also using low carbon means of transport that probably will be much easier, because they will be shorter distance because they are visiting around, etc. So raising awareness on this. And at the end, we would like to have more involvement from, for example, companies like Interrail, so that they provided more adopt tickets for Erasmus, so that they can have discounts, etc., on this, and facilitate that they use this low carbon means of transport.
Very nice. Thanks so much, Jose. I don't think there are any. Oh wait, there's another one coming in. Is there a plan to open school mobility for partner countries? This or another stage of the program? School mobility, I suppose, is referring to non-higher education, so earlier level.
Yes, well, we are now slowly opening this to an international dimension, other than higher education, the other sectors, opening it to international dimension, to international mobility, outgoing by now. Okay, so that there will be like I would not say pilot, but starting the experience increasing the international dimension of this mobility. We will start now with the ongoing part, so that more students will be able to travel to another countries outside the program countries. And we will see in the future how it is if this is complemented with mobility incoming for these countries who has no mobility schemas for their students to come to Europe if they don't have any complementarity. And we also hope that there will be complementarity with the other international dimensions, actions that we have in the program, like the capacity building, etc.
Thank you. Just to verify, then there's another question on the November call or the program guide, which will be issued in November, and whether all the programs that are usually there for third country cooperation will be indeed included.
Normally, yes. I mean, normally what you were able to find in the program guide of 2 years ago, so in the last year of the old program, will now be there in the new program, if they are in the new rules, etc. So you will have the international dimension, capacity building, and probably more. That you will discover some novelties there in the capacity building that we are opening, etc. So that's I hope that you will find everything there, except for that call that are published by the executive, directly by the executive agency. They will continue to be published by the executive agency, but normally let's say like 85% of the program is included in the program guide when it's published by the end of the month of November, beginning December. Our goal is to have it published before the end of the year.
And could you already elaborate on the novelties for capacity building that you just mentioned?
No, well, I don't. No. Please. I mean that we keep improving all the actions in this sense that we always try to keep improving the actions and trying to collect the needs of the participants and what can be improved. Erasmus is a program that while it is stable, it's never static, because it is fit by the experience of the organizations and the participants. So we always try to improve. So now is a good moment to include these details here and there that people has probably been asking that maybe there is room for improvement here or there. So this is why I address you to read them carefully when it is published, that I hope that some things, even the way that it is described, the action, we have tried in this new program guide to describe actions in a more user-friendly way, how to build a project, etc. in general. So this is what I was meaning. I hope that didn't raise any hype about this. Like, no, I mean that's we will have what we are used to, and probably we hope that things keeps improving. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much, Jose. I think in the chat there are still a couple of questions, but they're with regards to the sports section of Erasmus+, and I would encourage the people who asked the question to perhaps also contact their national Erasmus+ office in their respective country.
Still, I mean, I can tell you that the sport, it is more and more present in the program, and we hope to introduce in the next year, not in this call, but in the future, the sport mobility for staff. This is in the plan, so you can see that the sport is taking more and more prominent role in Erasmus and in agreement with what is established in the priorities.
Very nice. And this would then also be open to third or partner country participation?
This I cannot tell you. We are defining now the action per se. So by 2023, we hope that this will be ready to be launched. So we are defining. It could happen that it goes gradually because the budget of Erasmus is increasing, but you may know that the budget in Erasmus increased gradually. It is not that we will have double from the beginning. So it goes in a curve, in an increasing curve. So it means that maybe for sport we will have, no, for sure we will have more budget at the end of the program than like at the beginning, so that we need to open gradually to more participants, etc., as we are doing with other actions, so that we have enough core mass to have projects. But so change will come through the years, but I cannot tell you honestly. I cannot tell you because we are now defining the action.
Great. I think this was all the questions from the chat. So again, I would like to thank you so much, Jose, for your contribution today. And I hope you don't mind that we will also share your slides with all the participants after the end of this meeting. And I would then like to hand back over to my colleague, Elizabeth. Thanks, Jose.
Thanks to you. My pleasure.
Bye.
Okay, thanks again. Good session, raised expectations, I think. I know everyone is very eager to see the new program guide that in particular details the capacity building action. We've been promised it's coming soon. So, and I think by the time we reach the Sphere annual conference, it will be published, we hope. And we'll also have an opportunity in the annual conference to hear a bit about the future of Erasmus Plus from another perspective in the Commission, particularly from the International Cooperation Unit. So that might be another occasion to ask your questions. We're going to go now into the breakout groups. As I mentioned earlier, we have 2 breakout groups today. The first is looking more at in-depth at the topic of greening campuses, strategies for greening campuses. The second group will look at national networks and dialogue platforms that support greening of the higher education sector. You have the opportunity to choose your group today, and very shortly you will see that when you click on the breakout room icon, which should be in the bottom right-hand side of your screen, the 2 options should appear and you should be able to select the group of your choice. Room 1 is for green campus initiatives and room 2 is for national networks and dialogue platforms. Note that in each group you will have a chair, and you will also have a presenter who will be giving a first input, a first case study to help stimulate your thinking and to help launch then the discussion. You have 45 minutes. You're going to be catapulted back into the main room at that point, and we will wrap up, do a summary, and give you another preview of the conference, and then say goodbye. So that's the plan. When you're in the breakout rooms, if you realize you're in the wrong room or you wanted to go to the other room, you can always revert back by going back to the breakout room icon. So you're not stuck there, just so you know. If you have technical questions, please contact me in the chat or my colleague Nicole Font. Okay, welcome back, colleagues. I see people are filtering back in to the main room. I hope you had a good discussion. We are now going to move into our final session. We're going to wrap up today's webinar. We won't take too much more of your time, but we thought it was important to have a quick summary of what was discussed, to reflect a bit on what was learned today, and also to look forward towards the annual conference where we'll give you a little preview of the content. So perhaps I could ask Henrietta just to give us a very quick breakdown of what we learned in her group, and then we'll go on to Mikael.
Okay, thank you very much, Elizabeth. So in our breakout session, which was on national networks and dialogue platforms, we had an input presentation from Jespo Omerzanov from the Kazakh National Agrarian University, who showcased a bit of the activities of his university, which are very often focused on international collaboration projects in areas related to greening and environmental sustainability. And his university also is part of an international national ranking projects, which is called the Green Metrics. And according to his presentation and also elaboration afterwards, indeed, the participation in this ranking or in this international project gave his university a good push, shall you say, a good higher level of interest to implement change when it comes to environmental sustainability at their university. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a quiet group in the discussion. We didn't learn much more about national networks or dialogue platforms, perhaps due to the fact that these were absent in other people's experiences on the topic. We heard a little bit more examples from other universities on what they are doing or plan to do, including project-based activities on this topic, very often also focused more on the community or regional level rather than the international or national level. So I think it's safe to say that also, summarizing what we heard early on today, that there certainly is interest for exchanging and peer learning with other universities, perhaps even funded through the Erasmus Plus or other programs, the capacity building activities and so on. We also heard a couple of examples, very few examples of how universities can contribute to policy making in this area. So for instance, to consult their national government with evidence on environmentalism and climate change. But overall, we didn't arrive at a discussion or a suggestion rather for the future of the Sphere project, because that was the last question that we wanted to tackle in this group. So the question was what higher education reform experts could do in the future on this topic, whether there would be interest to tackle it also in the next generation of the Sphere project. But we put a pin in it for the annual conference where this question will be raised again. But of course, also for everyone else who was not in the discussion group, we would welcome your feedback. If you have any ideas already now, just do put them in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, Henrietta. And Mikael, how was your discussion on greening campuses?
I think we had an interesting discussion among a very few people, so there was also not much sharing, and unfortunately many of the cameras were kept switched off, so we didn't learn much from the others. But we had a very good input from our colleague Ahmed Abu Haniyeh from Birzeit University in Palestine. He introduced the context of the university. It's a mainly teaching-focused university with no real research departments. Research is undertaken by individual colleagues. And it is, of course, in an environment where resources are restricted, not only by nature, but also by the political situation. And this has given also reason to some of the initiatives that the institution has launched on greening and sustainability. There are 4 study programs, master's programs on environmental issue, landscape and agriculture, construction, and which seem to enjoy quite some popularity. And in addition, the university has also a couple of technical structures which enhance sustainability. One was explained in more detail. For example, it's the solar power which generates energy, not only for the university itself, but the production is in fact 3 times higher than what the university needs. So the electricity can be used in the institution's environment. And it's actually one of the ways of how the institution can also finance these installation and has some income, which is important in given the absence of other big donors. Several times European Union, DAD projects and were mentioned as one of the way to finance greening and sustainability activities. What was interesting is that the programs mentioned and the activities, they involve several faculties. So it's interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary approaches. And Ahmed also stressed how important they are for him and his colleagues who are researchers but do not have real research structures at the institution. So they do a lot of research on, for example, the solar power facility. And it's also a way to instruct and teach students on a concrete on a concrete and very practical installation. Interesting was also, in fact, how they on the ways on how they collaborate. The university collaborates then with the wider environment. Central government itself is very weak and also poor. But for example, the institution tries to promote products to companies, and as a matter of fact, many of the master students are not full-time students, but they work also in companies. So one of the original ways of promoting the university's achievements was to grant a master student a 30% fee reduction if they managed to set up an MOU with a company, which I think was interesting. The last point that we had, we discussed a bit the costs, because Ahmed mentioned that if you look on the priority list, it's still on first things first, and environmental issues, they might come second or third. And while that is understandable in a Palestinian context, I could reassure him that this is also still the way of how we often do things in Europe. And the examples or the discussion that or presentation that we just had on students' travel cost for Erasmus Mundus Mobility is just one example. And so we ended up to think about how costs are actually calculated or should be calculated. There were a few other examples that colleagues shipped in. We had, for example, one interesting example that Asma presented on where waste was actually turned into eco boards, and you could actually sell your waste, which was again another example on how you could also get some income through greening initiatives. I think that's it from our side.
Okay, thanks so much, Mikhail. Interesting. So again, those presentations will be made available on the Sphere platform. We'll try to splice in the recording into the main recording of this webinar. I would like to turn now to the final conference, because this is what's to come. We still have a few minutes left today. Share with you a few slides regarding the conference, and then if we have still some time at the end, open the floor just in case there's a last comment about something you potentially appreciated about this event or would like to see done better, and or something you would like to see us examine in the conference if we could, based on what you've learned here today. So if you bear with me just 2 minutes, I share with you a little bit what we're doing at the conference. Okay, so the Sphere annual conference, as you know, as higher education reform experts, we have an annual conference every year. Sadly, last year we did not have this, of course, due to the pandemic. We did have a seminar virtually. The last time we met physically was in Prague. That was 2 years ago. We will be doing this conference virtual again, though there have been some movements with regards to physical meetings, but it's still a patchy landscape. We will be offering a virtual event. I know that's disappointing to some, but we do have a much more dynamic conference platform that we hope will allow some degree of interaction and networking, at least more so than we normally get with Zoom. Dates are 18th, 19th November, and my colleague Nicole is just about to launch the registration, so stay tuned for that. It is open to all of the here, so encourage everyone in your national teams to join. This is the last conference of what has been a 7-year contractual period for Sphere. Some of you have been with us the entire time, others joined later to the network. We would like to celebrate what has been learned and achieved, but also reflect in more depth on the impact of the here in their higher education systems in EU neighborhood countries. This is particularly relevant, I think, in the past year and a half in the midst of the pandemic, but it's relevant more generally with regards to the action over the past 7 years. The conference is also an opportunity to look forward, to project forward, to think about what the new priorities are, to think about not just with regards to the European Union, but also further afield, and how this impacts your own dynamics and your own systems. We'll learn more about the new EU cooperation programs. Jose already gave us a bit of a teaser today. Like I said earlier, we anticipate that the new program guide and call, in particular for the capacity building actions, will be out in early November. We hope that you can bring to the conference some of your questions. We're going to try to understand better where the emphasis is placed, particularly for international cooperation and cooperation with the neighborhood. We're going to have some more general debates on the university of the immediate future, or the higher education sector of the immediate future. What does this look like? What should this look like? And how can this be achieved? And we're also going to consider how the dynamics of global cooperation may have changed and where there are challenges and opportunities. In terms of the specific themes covered, we're going to put a large emphasis on impact, in particular impact of the here action and impact of you all in your own respective systems. We'll look specifically at some areas where we think there's been traceable impact, for example, in quality assurance reform, student engagement, internationalization, and digitalization. These aren't the only areas, but these are areas where we've seen really a strong uptake with regards to the technical assistance missions and with regards to your interest as HEREs. We're going to listen to reflections from some of the experts that have been involved in the TAM, some of them you may know, and also from some of the HERE. We're going to look at EU policy priorities going forward, a forthcoming communication regarding what's being framed as the transformation agenda, but we'll also consider what's been outlined in a recent EUA paper called Universities Without Walls. We'll look again, as I said, more specifically at what's in store for Erasmus Plus and how that affects you directly. We're going to revisit the theme of mobility and inclusion, which was a major theme 2 years ago when we conducted a major study on this issue. And we're going to try to project as to where that topic can be taken, also in the framework of the EU programs. And we're going to do a follow-up to this webinar on the topic of greening in higher education. And there we would really like your feedback about how we can stimulate a more active debate in the conference around this topic and whether there are specific issues you would like us to see take forward. The platform I mentioned, it's called Event Insight. You will be receiving information about it prior to the event. It presents itself more as a simulation of what an actual conference looks like. There are much more possibilities for communication between participants, networking. We will be advertising the opportunity to have virtual booths and/or poster sessions, which you can through which you can promote a project, a reform, an initiative, etc. That opportunity will be offered to your NEOs. So please contact your NEO if you're interested in showcasing something. We also have our normal event website, which is embedded in the Sphere platform. As you normally register for events, you will also continue to do so for this conference. There we will include all the materials, the registration form, of course, a number of articles that many of you have submitted in the lead up to the conference, the video for this webinar, etc., etc. So that's just a little bit of a preview. We really do hope that you will join this event. It is our last event together in this format. We're going to try to also make it a celebration. And just, before we close, if anybody has any last reflections or comments they want to share on the topic of today, on how we can take it forward in the conference, or more generally, we would be happy to welcome that if we haven't totally exhausted you.
I have one comment.
Yes, please, Goran.
We were speaking actually about the possibility to support greening in higher education through Erasmus Plus program. And next call is approaching, maybe to give a kind of proposal to EACA and DGs in charge for development of new call for proposal to help us actually use the funds that we have within the capacity building in the field of higher education, innovation in partnership in higher education, which is the novelty, to use these funds, which are from 400 to 800 euros, to develop a project which will support greening in higher education in partner countries with support of program countries, and in that way help us actually develop the policies and implement the policies of European Commission defined in green tech.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion, and I'm certain our colleagues in the Commission would be interested in that. What should we? Do you think in the annual conference we could create a space to talk about that type of project?
Yeah, I think yes, because this concept of greening in higher education, even for me, was the new one, and I think that our universities they have already a kind of strategies, but no funds, because funds are the main problem. And in case we could develop this kind of project within capacity building in the field of higher education under the innovation in partnership in higher education, that would be, I think, easier for us.
Okay, excellent. Would you be willing to be contacted if we wanted to have a few voices, taking the lead in such an initiative?
I would be really happy to do that.
Okay, good, noted.
Welcome.
Any other
could I
comments?
just
Yes, Vera.
thank you so much for this wonderful day. And greening in the higher education is a new issue and a challenge for Russia. So we're so thankful that you're opening up new perspectives and new vistas. So great thanks, and I'd like to support this proposal that we need more Erasmus Plus projects in the field, and we have to open up our minds to these issues. So specifically, the universities in the central Moscow, it's so difficult to provide, greening in higher education if you are in the center of heat island. So very, very, very topical issue. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, we're glad that it's been useful, and we sense that there's an interest in having more. So we hope that in the new program for the year that this can be a major topic to be further explored. Last comments? Mikhail, would you like to offer any last words?
Elizabeth, just two words from Armenia.
Yes, please.
In a couple of days, it will be a big event. We invite all the heads of international relations officers at one university, and we will discuss about the developments in higher education and about mobility, etc., etc. And of course, today's meeting, today's webinar, today's discussion will be one of the theme of just delivery the information, delivery of all that directions and the strategy which are already going different places. And of course, they, together with their top administration, top management, they should think about the now and for future about the new projects, and not only whatever they could do without any even financial assistance, they should do on the strategic level, on the technical level, on the content level, etc., etc. So thank you very much for this discussion and the presentations and organization of today's event. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much for that feedback. That's very helpful. Okay, I give the floor to you, Mikhail. You're not obliged. Huh?
Yeah, I'm just thanks for coming today, and I mean, we are grateful to have received feedback from you on this topic, and that it's good to see that so many of you share our view that this is a very urgent topic. And the fact that we brought it up now right at the end of the, Elizabeth mentioned it, the SPHERE program comes to an end. You know, we also see that as already pointing towards a new project, a new SPHERE project that we hope that the Commission will launch in early 2022. So we believe this might not be the last occasion for you to be able to discuss then greening and sustainability. But as Elizabeth has already said, these are last words for today, but we all hope very much to see you at the annual conference and to continue the discussions. So that's all for me. Great to have seen you after, many of you after so long time again.
Yeah, I can only echo that. It's really a pleasure. I miss our meetings very much so, but thanks for those who were active today, turned on your cameras, shared, and we really do hope to see you in the final conference. Thanks to everyone who contributed today, to my colleague Henrietta, who was great and has been super dynamic, and also with regards to preparing the content and the work she's done on the greening survey. Thanks so much to Nicole, as always, and of course to Miguel and the other colleagues in the SPHERE team that you may not see here on the screen. Okay, everyone, have a lovely afternoon wherever you are. We'll see you very soon, and at least virtually, and crossing our fingers for occasions to see you in person, face to face.